Hello, everyone. This is Irlianna Samsara back again with another edition, the 82nd edition of StarSound Speaks, starsoundastrology.com. Yeah, wow. Well, happy new moon, everybody. I'm going to talk about the new moon and the potentials for what's about to occur in the next month, even the next 2 months. And I'm going to focus more not on the so much of the technicalities of this planet, that planet. I mean, we'll certainly, I'll walk you through that. I've already kind of done that in the January astrology last week, but I'm going to relay these things to practical solutions. This was a message, a directive I got in meditation last night. And so lots and lots of great things open and are always getting these downloads. It's really fascinating. So my wish and my prayer here is to, bring these being proactive, and how do we engage these intense energies that are just about to occur. So I will say, looking at the astrology for this, for this new moon, it could very well be the most intense, transformative new moon of the entire year. So a different kind of energy than last year's, but nonetheless, we're engaging in a different plane here. This is the first new moon of the year. So it's the first new moon we're seeing in this new air era of an Aquarian air signs, right? Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius. So things take on the words I'm hearing is a dynamic tension, but it's all on very, very high planes, very high frequencies. We had to go through and purge the earth elements and with everything in that Capricorn lineup, or as I called it, the Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto freight train. We had to do so much of that last year, a lot of shadow work. And there's a reason for that, but things are just about to pop open. Now, obviously, as we've seen in the news, with everything that happened last week at the Capitol and Trump's departure from office and the inauguration occurring, it's interesting because the astrology for this timing is very intense. It's very volatile, and it's, I would say, between Sunday, the 17th of January and the 23rd, all of next week, that's a really potent, a very rich, potent portal, we will say. So naturally, we might feel a little scared or apprehensive. Well, that's understandable. The new moon today, which occurred in Eastern Standard Time, it occurred at right 1 minute after midnight. And it has the sun and the moon and Pluto all conjunct. 23 degrees of the sun and moon and Capricorn, and then Pluto. So sun, moon, and Capricorn, extremely intense, right? Pluto is Hades, right? The god of hell, right? So that can be scary, right? The god of the underworld, the things that we're not aware of and we don't see, and that we're not aware that we're not aware, and while that can be very forbidding, because it's involving the unknown and a journey into the unknown, it's also very, when we can face the depth of things and the things that we've not been aware of, then we can move and reprogram ourselves and regenerate from the deepest core of our being. So that's the Pluto archetype, right? It's a radical restructuring from the very foundations of who we are personally in our lives, and of course in the collective, what we see in our society. So when you have Saturn conjunct Pluto, whenever you have Saturn conjunct Pluto, it's certainly a time for this deep purging, revealing, and transformation. It could be, speaking of purging, as just before I started this podcast, the news came out that Trump was impeached a second time. So here it is in the collective. So with this now, whether he leaves office, I don't know, because you have to, the Senate and, people have to have a majority vote. To actually remove him from office. So whether that happens, I don't know, but you can see the forces of transformation in the collective of how this is playing out. But Pluto conjunct can be the death of a leader, or the ending, death or endings of a leader. So it could be that he's, this is the end of, whether it's he leaves now, or certainly, or just leaves the day of the inauguration. It's certainly indicating that passage. And it can be any leader. It can be, a CEO. It could be a ruler of any country, or monarch, or, Capricorn rules monarchy. So who knows, there may be, aged people that are, ready to pass. So there's that. And then on in the personal side, it's, the sun is the ego, right? It's the ego principle, and it's our direction and purpose in life and our path forward. And so with the sun conjunct Pluto, that's a huge, in a yogic way, that's like huge ego death. This is an opportunity to just completely purge any notion of who we think we are. When you think of the sun being like the ego, the self, excuse me. So like I said, this carries enormous potential. So as much as the headlines are very disturbing, out in the world and all, it can be very easy to be caught up in, fear and such, because obviously with Pluto, survival can come up, fear of survival and fear of letting go. And yet I want to really dedicate most of this talk today to just talking about how important it is to remember ourselves and do that inner work, that there are levels that are waiting to be revealed in this lunation, in this new moon cycle. These levels are, perhaps never, we've not seen this level. We're in a new era now with the air signs. So these are ideas and understandings that are new to us. And so we always have to just keep letting go of the past, whatever happened or didn't happen or failed to happen, or whatever work we didn't do last year or the year before, or whatever, even this morning, we have to just completely let that go, be here now, and move forward with grace. We have Venus in Capricorn, so this restructuring has this overlay of Divine Mother energy, a Divine Mother and the divine feminine, right? So that archetype of grace and peace and connection and sharing. So that's gonna override. Now, I often think of Pluto as the shaman, who having gone through his own ego death comes out of the other side and, and helps others. And so what's there for us this month is to face our deepest shadows, whatever's going on in our life right now. There are breakdowns that are about to occur, and then breakthroughs. So let's make sure that we don't get so caught up and stuck in the breakdown that we forget that this is all happening for a reason, that there is something beyond that. And it's not easy when we're in it, to remember, oh, there's a breakthrough coming. It's like, oh, shut up, right? It's like, you don't want to hear about it. But it really, we just want you to, that's the fruit of our labor, right? Why are we going through all this dark night of the soul? Because there's something that's being birthed that's better than what we already have. And in order to reach that, we have to let go of everything we know to be. In Pluto and Capricorn, it's like our very structure of reality. And that there are forces, subconscious fears or subconscious patternings that have the capacity to be revealed this month, and that we, weren't aware of. So these unconscious parts of ourselves, that with the sun conjunct Pluto, the sun is like shining a light. It's like if you can imagine shining a light into like a sewer hole. You take the manhole cover off and you shine a flashlight and you're like, oh, that's not very pleasant. But there's stuff there, and it's like we don't want to face it. It's been concealed, it's been hidden, it's been covered up. And so, it's disturbing A sewer stinks, who wants to deal with that stuff? But if you could imagine just cleaning out whatever detritus, exists deep in our psyches, in our nadis, in the channels, in the nadis in yoga, the channels of light that are within and without in the body. There are 72,000 nadis in the body, and there are 72,000 outside. So that's 144,000 nadis. That's a lot of nadis. So this is where we get to purge by bringing our conscious awareness to this. There are things that reveal. Things will be revealed, but we have to be willing to let go, even if we just don't know how. You don't have to know how. Just tell the divine, you know what, I just surrender, when you're just tired of hanging on. So when you want to, this is where we get to restructure and reprogram ourselves, our own self, our own identity of who we know ourselves to be. And then, like I said, in society, having done that, then society can reflect that change. How Gandhi always used to say, be the change you wish to see in the world. Well, when we do that shadow work, then we're in a whole different frequency, and then the world shows up differently. So anyway, having said that, so 23, 24 degrees. Interesting that there was an eclipse a year and a half ago. There was an eclipse in July of 2019. I believe it was the 24th of July. And it was at 24 degrees Capricorn. So if you're familiar with the talks and the podcasts and episodes I've done, when an eclipse happens, that's like a seed that's planted, and then the germination occurs. Typically, it's when Mars hits that point. Well, Mars hit that point in March of this past year, March 2020. Well, of course, that's when COVID exploded, right? However, this time we have a lunation, a new moon on that. So talk about new beginnings, new moon, new beginnings, sun, moon, and Pluto, all three planets, the luminaries and Pluto, are lined up right on that eclipse point. So what was happening in that time is, again, another level that is where things can be revealed, a light that is shown on whatever was going on in the world at that time. So, and I would say too that any of us, if your sun, moon, or any planets or your rising sign happens to be in these late degrees, cardinal signs of Capricorn, Aries, Cancer, and Libra, any of those, if you have any planets in those late signs, so 20 to 27 degrees, I would say, of cardinal signs, this particular lunation is going to be very powerful for you. I have it. I've got some going on, so it's definitely, it's cooking. So having said that, let's move on. So ego death. Think ego death, think great revealings, discoveries and revealments about things that were operating in your life that you didn't realize that were operating. With Capricorn, that might be family dynamics, like the roots of your family history, your ancestral, things going back many generations. This is an opportunity to heal that, like karmic patterns from families. So I would look and use this. This is an enormous place where we get to work that out. So that really is, so to not be caught up in fear and scare tactics and such, but to really use this juicy portal, especially it's the 17th to the 23rd. It's a really big time to engage in and do this work. So to give us some little, and I will say too, it could be very, it could be like come up, like I always think of a volcano. Pluto rules volcanoes. So it could be this volcanic cathartic experience, right? This eruption of like, whoa, the lava comes, pouring out the top and just outrageous smoke plumes, right? And all this lava coming down and destroying everything in its path. But if you ever looked and if you've seen, volcanoes, I love using this analogy, and I know it's one of my favorite analogies. So if you've had a session with me, I'm sure you've heard it. If we've had to talk about a Pluto transit, or just on the podcast, but when it kills everything in its path, the thing is that new life occurs, right? So Pluto is about death, but it's also about resurrection. So what rises? So, and I really encourage you to go Google, like in Google Images, like volcanic eruption soil after a volcanic eruption. And the green that comes up, the grass and the trees are this incredible electric green. It's full of life because the volcanic soil, when it cools, it has tons and tons of minerals. So minerals, of course, are at the forefront of engagement of life and consciousness, right? It's electrically active, so it brings forth new life. So, think about, using these analogies this month when you hit tough spots, and you'll, hopefully this will give you some good guidance, to see your way through this and to go to the other side where there is the breakthrough, right? Every breakdown is a breakthrough waiting to occur. So, yeah, so it has the capacity to regenerate ourselves, again, from the ground up, and nothing is ever the same. When a Pluto transit occurs, the past is finished. Um, there's a glimpse into, like I was saying, the sewer. So, in the collective, it's like we could be getting a glimpse into society, that like the deep, dark underbelly of society, and government structure and things like that. It's like the things that we haven't wanted to see or deal with, corruption and such. So again, this is a super powerful lunation for things coming to the surface. Okay. Now let's go to, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the exact planets, and then I'm going to give you some cool solutions, and then that'll be it. So, okay, I'm going to pull this off. Let's see. All right. So the things that we're looking at this lunation for this cycle, we have Jupiter square Uranus. And that's only 1 degree apart. So that can be, a dynamic tension about the desire to be free, to have the truth and to know the truth, and to have the truth liberate you. You could say that. Or be very inventive and creative and original expressions of consciousness, maybe connections with deep other dimensional realities. Like I've said before, Uranus rules ETs. Uranus is about ready to, is it tomorrow that it goes direct? Holy moly. Let me check and see. Uranus does, I think it's any day or hour now. Oh, tomorrow, yeah, the 14th, 3:30 in the morning on January 14th, Eastern Standard Time, Uranus is direct. So that's, with it being at this still point for the last few weeks, as we've known, we've seen a lot of ET information and news. Something I found really fascinating, I really kind of had to chuckle. A friend of mine found this. She said that it was in CNN that the stimulus bill, believe it or not, I mean, I know it sounds like crazy to even imagine this, but this is what she found, that the stimulus bill that was signed, where everybody got the $600 checks in the States. Well, in the fine print was there was a stipulation that the government had to release all they know about ETs and UFOs in like the next 180 days. So that's 6 months. Interesting, because in 6 months, we're going to have another Uranus square Saturn. Saturn will be retrograde in June, and it'll be squaring. So I just find that fascinating, because Uranus, Taurus rules, Uranus rules ETs, and Taurus rules money and banking and finance. And here it is, this finance bill to bail people out. They have ETs like somehow stuck in the fine print, like, what does this have to do with COVID stimulus checks? Nothing. But somehow somebody got that thing in there, and they're making them come clean of what they know. So pretty, and Uranus rules the odd and the weird. And so it's just, of all places, right? Of all places to have some kind of ET revealing is in a stimulus money check, it's just Uranus, off the wall, good old Uranus. Anyway, so we're having that in the mix as well. So we have Jupiter squaring Uranus as it goes direct. We have Mercury square Uranus. So we could be having again, that could be you could be having, you could contact, telepathically other dimensional beings. You could contact your future self. This is a good time to go into, instead of a past life regression, think future life progression. That's very Uranian, the future. So what if you went into the future to see what kind of person that you desire to be, and take those images and in that meditation and bring that information forward, or well, we'll say into the present moment. So build, what does Stephen Covey say? 7 habits of highly effective people. Begin with the end in mind. So what if you go into the future to see your perfected self, like, wow, this is who I desire to end up being in my lifetime, and bring that into the present and then make the necessary changes. That would be a good use of Mercury square Uranus. Venus is going to be is trine Uranus, so it's making a very nice, easy aspect with Uranus. So if you fall in love with someone with green hair, I don't know, could happen. Venus and Uranus, right? The strange, the unusual. Maybe you'd meet an ET on what's that site? Hookup, whatever. Those Grinder. I don't know. I don't follow these things. I just hear about them. But some dating app, right? Maybe there's some very unusual person who's paradigm buster and freedom loving or liberating. This is a really juicy lunation for that, for maybe stepping outside the boundaries of who you love and your way of connecting. Venus trine Uranus would also be about meeting and connecting with people online. Like we haven't done that for a year, right? But again, new ways, or being inventive and creative. So there you have that. So yes, these are potent opportunities. So yeah, I just have at it, and just remember, like, we're the ones in charge. It's not, if anything we learned of that last year, it's like that there are no authorities out there. It's within us. So let's keep bringing ourselves back to our sacred center. Okay, so I also got an idea. I'm going to now talk about the just some solutions and things, how we can engage. And I'd love to hear from you too. So, your comments below in the section below. Great to hear how you're using these energies and what's happening for you. So, feel free to use that. Also, always grateful liking and sharing, and sharing the video if you think anybody else could use this information. And I'm always here to look at the bright side of things. That's where my Jupiter is very well placed, right? I have to be optimistic, and in the darkest of times is always about finding the light. So anyway, and I am going to have I had on a previous podcast earlier in the year, another message from Spirit. Well, came through again last night. Have these people back on. Irma-san, a pranayama bhakti yogi, very devoted to breath work. I'm going to have him talking about that, because Uranus now going direct. This is a really potent time for engaging in pranayama. So if you don't know what that is, that's the science and the practice of using, and it's a yogic path of using the breath. And we're also going to have on Shata. She's going to come back. She's Shata Benavari. She's a yoga master, and she can share some yoga wisdom and some cool stories, and some great ways to empower ourselves. We don't have to be bending like pretzels, to do yoga. There are many, many ways in which to approach yoga, but it will definitely see us through in a really powerful way. And yeah, so those are just two of the people I have in mind too, to come on and talk about how we can use this energy wisely. I wanted to share, I know we've heard so much scary news about Washington, and these wild people that want to come back, and disturbances and protests, and these horrendous things that happened from the Capitol riots. However, there's always light to be found anywhere, right? Well, I found out on CNN CNN, and it was on the news the other day, it said, believe it or not, that remember how the U.S. Capitol Police Chief, I think he resigned. I think he resigned in obviously over what had happened. Well, they replaced that chief with a woman police, the head of the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol Police Force, and they have appointed a Black woman as its acting police chief, as a result of, the other person leaving. So, and you know what her name is? This is going to blow you away. Her name is Yogananda Pittman. Her first name is Yogananda, and they call her Yogi. I'm like, oh my God, like Yogananda is overseeing the Capitol, the very sacred spot of our democracy. Yogananda. It's like, oh my God. So in case you've never heard of Yogananda, or if you're just beginning with yoga, or you're just not familiar or don't know any yoga, that's fine. Everyone is welcome here. I want to share with you, Yogananda was 100 years ago, now 101 years ago, he brought yoga to America. He came to the United States and he created a center in Los Angeles, which is there to this day, the Self-Realization Fellowship. He wrote the Autobiography of a Yogi, which is one of the most widely read spiritual classics ever in anywhere, published in a gazillion languages. I pulled out my copy to show you because I wanted to share this. This is really old. This was given to me, 33 years ago. But here it is. So the cover is very yellowed, but this is what it looks like. This is I don't know if you can see, it's very yellow, but it's supposed to be bright yellow. And look, and the cover fell off, right? So you can imagine. So that's Yogananda. So he's a saint, and Paramahansa Yogananda, and a great, great soul. I feel very strongly that I am of his lineage. My soul lineage, so I have a very warm place in my heart. This book was given to me by a man I met in a seminar many years ago. And I remember he was Jewish. Side story here, interesting share. He was an Italian Jew, right? So what, 4% of the population, if that, right? He was an Italian Jew, and he was a devotee of Yogananda. So I thought, okay, now this is a Uranian. You want to talk about Mars or Mercury square Uranus? Here's an unusual conversation. And he just was so taken. I was early on my spiritual path. I had just busted out of the gate. And he said, oh, I'm going to come over to my house. I'll cook you dinner. And after dinner, he gave me this book, and I still have it. And I was living in New York City. And I remember I was Catholic at the time, but I was kind of searching. I was looking at like what's next, and there's something bigger, but I don't know what it is. So the divine answers us, right? When we're ready to receive the divine answers. And he gave me this book, and he said, here, I want you to have this book. And I'm like, Autobiography of Yogi. There's this guy with an orange robe. And I'm looking, I'm going, nah, I don't know about this. I said, look, Lorenzo, okay, look, I just have to tell you, okay, I'm Catholic. It's like, it's not really my thing, I mean, appreciate it, but he goes, no, don't trust me, really. I go, no, it's okay. You can keep the book. And he goes, no, really, I really want you to have it, really. Like, you love this. I'm telling you, just trust me on this. So I'm like, oh, okay. I'm thinking, all right, I don't want to be rude. My mother always taught me, be very gracious. Somebody gives you a gift, don't give him. So I'm trying not to give him a hard time. I just wanted to be honest with him. But I acceded, and I took his advice, and I took the book home. And a few days later, I can still remember on the Uptown Madison Avenue bus, and I'm like, oh, I got some time here, so let me open this book, this Autobiography of a Yogi. Okay, whatever. And I'm like, I open on page 1, and I am like, all of a sudden, the humility of this man, the essence of this humility came off. I don't know how to explain it. It came off the pages, and it was so rich and so deep. And it just struck me. My little cynical New Yorker heart was like blown open on the Madison Avenue bus, right? And I'm sitting there, and the tears are like streaming down my face. And I'm going, oh my God, what? So that was it. I was hooked, right? This book it changed my life. Interesting too, because I was still going to church at the time, and there was his guru, Sri Yukteswar. He was like one of the most renowned scholars on the Bible, right? So it takes a Hindu, right, to see. And by reading this book, I understood the faith that I grew up with Christianity and Catholicism, in a way that was not available to me. So that's a very Uranian conversation, right? Step outside the box of 8 years of Catholic school, right? Step outside and look at something from a new angle. So that's good advice for this month. But that was my example of, and so I'm eternally grateful to you, Lorenzo, wherever you are in the world. I just want you to know that this book changed my life, and it gave us, there's so many rich, it's his life and how he met all these mystics and saints and performing siddhis, which are like supernatural powers, and the grace of the divine light that comes through. So it's not about, being entertained by those things. It's just by being inspired and to understand the deep, infinite well from which we originate. It's like we are so much more than who we are, that we're so much vaster. And if anything, this lunation will show us is that if we open our heart and listen and allow and really engage, there is wealth, right? Pluto is like the wealth of the earth. There is wealth to be poured out on us for this, in this lunation. So if you've never read this book, or if you have, but it's been a while, bring it back. Great stories and outrageous about faith and just everything, so many different foreign languages. It's, so yeah. Oh, and by the way, when I'm just feeling to say this, I feel that Yogananda is probably here. When he passed on, his body never decomposed. So I remember the Catholic in me, definition of a saint. They dig up the body, and if the body it's called incorruptibility, then they know it's a saint. He or she is a saint. Well, that's what happened with Yogananda. He was interred in Los Angeles at Forest Lawn Cemetery, but and there was a statement in the back of the book from the funeral, the head of the whatever, there, that said, his body was like it possessed no decay after he passed. And I'm talking like several weeks. They had to wait for people to come from India, from his ashram or something, to, as part of the whole proceeding and his funeral, passing and all that. And so, yeah, so great Pluto, Sun conjunct Pluto, right? Here you go. The other thing I was going to say too is that this is, these were not things I was planning to say to you today, but I'm just, things open up when I come into this in front of the Zoom camera. In terms of inspiration, I remembered too, there was, well, you know what I did? I was looking for one asteroid and found another. There is actually an asteroid called Chant. There's asteroids for everything you could imagine. It's so much fun to like play with that. But let me just pull up where this occurs in the chart of Washington, D.C. Asteroid Chant is in the 7th house. Not that houses, I mean, only because it's Washington, D.C., but we do show, by the way, in the chart of Washington that the sun, moon, Pluto, this new moon is in the 4th house. So that's the base, one's roots and the roots of government, right, has this enormous potential for cathartic and purging and a transformative, regenerative happening. But asteroid Chant is conjunct, and no matter where in the world you are, asteroid Chant and Chiron, the wounded healer in Aries, they're conjunct. So sing and chant in whatever songs, whatever language. If sacred chant, really great, right? Major brownie points, whatever it's Hebrew, Sanskrit, Tibetan, whatever floats your boat. Chant, singing, yeah. And that will heal ourselves and open, see, it being asteroid Chant in Aries would be opening these newer levels of oneself, of one's divinity. So yeah, asteroid Chant. How do you like that? Anyway, I was looking at different things, and I remembered that there was this man I read about, and his name is Thomas Ashley Farrand. And I believe he passed on, but he wrote a book, and I don't remember the name of it. However, you could, look up his name. But he was a Sanskrit chant master. And before years and years ago, he tells this really interesting story. Believe it or not, it was Washington D.C. And he had gotten a job as, I want to say, in accounting or something, and somebody offered him a job. It was just a temporary job, so he wasn't on payroll. He came in like as a consultant. And he had these really mind-blowing, and now he was not on any, drugs or medicine or plant medicine or hallucinogens, nothing. It was just him having these otherworldly mystical experiences in the very government. He worked at the Department of Labor. You can't get more, rooted than that. And he was these beings and these people who worked with him that looked like, office managers and office workers and cubicles. They had cubicles, right? This is like a really 3D experience. But he had these outrageous transmissions of light and telepathy and his third eye, and like he literally saw light shoot across the room from like one person's third eye to the next or to his. And it was just, I know it sounds otherworld crazy, but this really happened. He's not, nuts, and he very respected chant master, and he wrote about this. So I went to pull it up. So you can, if you look that up, you can find some great inspiration. And it made me think, because of Yogananda Pittman being the guardian angel, the head of the police force, right? That energy of Yogananda permeating, right? And it made me remember the story that I read years ago about Thomas Ashley Farrand. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. That, and it reminded me, like, no matter how dark things get, because let's face it, we could be seeing some serious uprising here, around right before and leading up to the inauguration. But it's, again, the light is always with us in ways that we don't realize. Is that a person you're seeing? Is that a policeman you're seeing? Is that a hot dog vendor you're seeing? It's like, who are these people really? So just like the dark can pose as, some evil corporate CEO type person, the rape and pillage of the American worker, kind of thing, or any worker, that's a very dark side. But the light side could be, these beings in disguise, angels and avatars and things that come into physical third dimensional reality to work miracles behind the scenes, just like Thomas Ashley Farrand experienced. And so here we have, and that was, in Washington. So I thought, okay, I hope those guys are still there. Please come in, please stay. And we need more reinforcements. Thank you. So yeah, we're going to see through this. Okay. So don't get caught up in the fear. Very, with a Mars squaring Uranus and Mercury squaring Uranus, your thoughts and ideas can be very much, swept away by like mob thinking, and like we have to just stay in our center. So that's why I'm saying chant. Read Autobiography of Yogi. Read the Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is that's like the Hindu, the Vedic scriptures, the Bible. It's like the Bible, for in the Vedic tradition. So here's my copy. My cat must love it. He chewed the corner. So obviously it's a testament to the good high vibration, but that's the Bhagavad Gita. Again, this is a very highly, I can't even begin to tell you, it's just so codexed to the max with truth and wisdom and things beyond our normal understanding. But this is one example of many, many holy books, I would say it's good to surround ourselves with, sacred scripture, and of whatever faith, whatever path that calls to you, whatever elevates your heart, to go after that. Believe it or not, when I wanted to look up my Thomas Ashley Farrand information, I had actually put it in a book I wrote many years ago. And I'm a big Harry Potter fan, and it's called The Codes of Harry Potter. And so mystical messages to transform our world, because I love movies and I loved Harry Potter. When I went to look up the Thomas Ashley Farron thing, I came upon an excerpt from my book, and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, like, talk about unexpected things. You're honest. I forgot all this. I mean, I wrote the thing 7.5 years ago. And it's on Amazon. Here's a picture of what it looks like. Shameless book promo. I got my start in my career doing book publicity when I worked on Madison Avenue. Okay, I was a book publicist. So it comes down, you can take the girl out of book publicity, but, right? So here it is. This is what it looks like. Let me see. The Codes of Harry Potter. Da, 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 author plug. And this is, you can get this on in Amazon.com. It's $4.84. We'll set you back and you get your very own copy. I cannot autograph it, but I send you my good wishes. And so anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is because when I first read Harry Potter, I thought, wow, from the very beginning, I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. This is really about what's going to happen in the future. This is about, the forces of good against evil and this showdown with the whole society, with the Voldemort and, and the forces of dark and the forces of light, led by Harry. The etymology of the word Harry means army leader. I did all this it was an interesting little thing. If you love Harry Potter, you might like to read this. I did write it for people who even hadn't read Harry Potter or didn't feel to or weren't attracted to it, to just talk about the symbology of it. So you don't have to have read the books to have understood all of it. Certainly great if you did, but if you're interested, you might want to check that out. But the reason I brought this up was because there's a scene in that book. Well, there's a scene, and you saw it in the movie, where Harry gets, he had to grow up with his step parents and they were mean to him. Long story short, the big Hagrid guy comes to rescue Harry and tell him of his heritage. Like, guess what, Harry, you're a wizard. Who the heck are you? He busts into this place where they were staying to get away from Hagrid. They hold themselves up, and the mean aunt and uncle, and it's this big confrontation with the mystical world saying, Harry, you're really one of us. You're not one. And here's Harry going, I don't know what I don't know who these, who is this man has come to take me away. But he reminds him of his heritage. And so I thought, wow, isn't that, it was very mystical that I rediscovered that passage while preparing for this podcast. And so I call it the hut scene. And I described the symbology of it, but I realized, wow, there's such resonance with what's happening now. There's with that Sun, Pluto, and Sun, Moon, and Pluto conjunct in this new moon cycle for the next 28, 30 days until February 11th, the next new moon, which is also another level of great revealing, which is really like another level of off the chart. So this month and next month are like super juicy, and I have a whole nother slate of things lined up to talk about with that one, but one thing at a time, right? But anyway, so I just wanted to mention that it's just a really a potent little read, because what I started seeing when I first read Harry Potter in the year 2000 was, wow, this is really this is not children's entertainment. This is way deeper, and it's got these really deep levels of encodement. Honestly, I think that it's like a modern day version of the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita. That's a very intense, maybe radical thing to say, but that's what I truly believe and feel from the depth of my heart. That it's like in the Gita, it's this conversation with Arjuna and Krishna on the battlefield, and it's a dialogue, and it's really about the battle of the ego self, and surrendering oneself to the divine and the forces that keep us from that. It's very big. It's bigger and richer and deeper than that, but it kind of gives you a sense of things. But since Harry is all about this, Harry Potter, this mystical journey of discovering one's true self, you know, like Harry being that, you know, the fully realized person who has capabilities. It's like we're born into this world not realizing how truly powerful we are. And society is like the Dursleys, you know, like it like conditions us to believe that we're smaller than, and to shun that part of ourselves that wants to be free and to be that wizard that, you know, that creates outrageous magical things. So anyway, the book has lots of good solutions too, for engaging and creating, like, be the change and be that beautiful, mystical, magical society that you have only dreamed of. Like it really is. If there's anything the Harry Potter books have given our this, you know, generations of us, is that, you know, there really is no limit to what we can accomplish and how we can impact and create a society that's based upon that. So anyway, oh, that's all I really wanted to share today. And I hope you enjoyed this and got value from it. Um, Please let me know in the comment section below. Always great to hear from you. If you are interested in a session of where this new moon or anything you know, for this year might show up in your chart, and where these transformations are going to be taking place for you, we can help you with that. Certainly, just, you know, holler at me, www.starsoundastrology.com. You can check me out there. So very much grateful for this opportunity. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, powerful, outrageous new moon cycle in Sun, Moon, Pluto, and Capricorn. Whew, here we go, right? Okay, I'll see you soon. This is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, starsoundastrology.com. Thank you all for listening. Namaste.